Time to welcome, as we always do at this point of the show, Laquan Jones back to wearing the loud shirts like you and Jason McCourty have been going shopping
Yeah,
together.
You re-inspired me, man. I had to bring them back, and I got the chain this week, so it's
Ooh, you were wearing like regular T-shirts, and I'm like, I don't know who this man is.
Normal
like,
LQ.
Like Chicky Palmer, like, I don't know this man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to this man. Who we are not sorry to, though, are a lot of the guys who had big fantasy performances during the season. A segment we like to call, Put the Team on My Back, though. No Greg Jennings, no broken legs, but a lot of guys who did put the team on their back. So, Florio, who was one of your favorite big-time fantasy performances of the season?
Jahmyr Gibbs, week 7 against the Ravens, 27.6 fantasy points. And up until that point, we were very worried about Jahmyr Gibbs, and I had a lot invested in him. I was talking him up as a potential league winner, have him on a bunch of teams. And Marcus, I think that was the first week we did Marcus Grant's 3 Wishes on Fantasy Live, and I was like begging, like, please let this be the Jahmyr Gibbs breakout week. It happened. And then even better than that was last week seeing Gibbs and Montgomery coexist. They both scored touchdowns. They were both heavily involved. It looks like to me like you could just start both of the Lions' backs moving forward, and I still think Gibbs brings some league-winning upside, but so does David Montgomery in this offense.
I mean, yeah, Laquan, this is like one of the few opportunities where like a guy maybe gets a secondary role, moves up to a primary role. So, I mean, are you confident that Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy now that we thought he was going to be?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you got to be confident in him just putting him in starting lineups. Like, I believe him and Monty work a great 1-2 punch. Like, they're both top 3 right now in rushing yards per game. So, like, that's something you want to see. Like, back in the day when we were starting Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at the same time, like, these guys are just going to be elite for the rest of the season.
They're like peanut butter and chocolate. I'm glad that Dan Campbell decided we could finally put those two things together. It's amazing. I mean, shout out to the Lions, though, for actually sticking with Jahmyr Gibbs even after David Montgomery came back, because we were worried that it might go back the other way. Meanwhile, LQ, Raheem Mostert, look, at some point this season we're calling him Raheem Must Start.
Yeah.
And maybe big performances like he had against the Panthers had something to do with it.
Yeah, he simply does not get enough love, man. I mean, before, during, or after the rookie Devon Achane, I mean, Mostert remains a solid running back. I mean, he's put the team on his back in week 6 like we saw without Achane, and he finished RB1 that week, and he had 3 touchdowns. I mean, without the rookie, man, Mostert has held down the fort with this Dolphins run game. I mean, even dating back to last season, I mean, since 2022, the dude's top 5 in touchdowns, yards per carry, rushes of 10+ yards. Like, the dude is just simply explosive, man. And like, he's currently leading the league in yards per carry, rushing touchdowns. Like, the list goes on how explosive he is, and like, he's going to carry a lot of teams to the fantasy playoffs and maybe even beyond.
So, Florio, we just talked about the Lions' backfield with Gibbs and Montgomery. Can we get something similar in Miami with Devon Achane expected back?
I think so, because yes, like that was the week that Raheem Mostert finished as the RB1. It's not even his highest scoring game of the season, because there was a game where Achane and Mostert both top 45 fantasy points. I think they can coexist. His floor gets lowered a bit. The upside is still sky high, though, because he is so explosive. One long run could be a huge day for either of those backs.
So for me, I'm looking at Adam Thelen, because we didn't expect anything from Adam Thielen. Week 1, he gave us 3 points, like, okay, whatever. Week 2, 20 points, you're like, all right, that was interesting. Week 3, he went for a $145 and a touchdown against the Seahawks, 31.5 fantasy points, and at that point, we were like, oh, we need to pay attention to Adam Thielen. It's been great for the first half of the season, but LQ, the last couple of weeks have not been so good. Is it about time to maybe jump off the Thielen bandwagon?
I don't know. I might be jumping back on with Frank Reich calling the plays, because, I mean, before he gave away the play calling, I don't think he was a top 10 wide receiver, and it's like crazy to say, but the volume is there, and I think it's going to remain consistent if Frank Reich is going to be making these calls.
Well, we'll see what happens. As you mentioned, Frank Reich taking over the play calling duties. Can that bring Thielen back after a bit of a slump? Let's go back around again, because, Florio, you're looking at the guy who right now looks like the offensive rookie of the year, both in fantasy and in the real NFL.
Yeah, I think he's locked up the real life award already. CJ Stroud, in week 9, he went out and had the best game of any quarterback has had this season. 41.8 fantasy points. The only other quarterback to top 35 in a game this year is Josh Allen. But it was the best game ever in NFL history by a rookie quarterback. Most passing yards in a game by a rookie. Most passing touchdowns. No rookie quarterback ever had a game with 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He threw for 470 and 5. In the history of the NFL, Ben Roethlisberger is the only other quarterback to do that in a game. Historic performance across the board.
So I mean, look, I don't know how much Dynasty you play. You play a little bit of Dynasty.
Yeah.
Is he the number one Dynasty quarterback right now?
He's locked that up a while ago. I mean, this dude's just breaking records like it's nothing. And like honestly, if I had to pick a secondary team to be a fan of, CJ Stroud has definitely made me a Texans fan now, because like he's just going out there doing amazing things. It's like must-watch TV right now for CJ Stroud.
So he's surpassed Mahomes?
Oh my God, yeah, he's that guy, man. He is that guy.
Spice. Woo.
Bringing the heat.
All right, LQ, Keenan Allen, he's near the top of my list of wide receivers we take for granted, and I think this year he's shown us why.
I mean, look, he not only is he putting the team on his back, he's putting my fantasy roster on his back as well, man, because the dude put up 40 fantasy points in Week 10 versus the Lions. He had 175 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. This is his second game this season with 175-plus receiving yards. He's currently the wide receiver 2 behind Tyreek Hill, and he's always been one of the best wide receiver 2s that you can kind of match up and pair with the elite talent in the first round, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down. He's still going out there making the big plays, and even dating back to last season, if the season started in week 11 after he returned back from the hamstring, he finished as the wide receiver 3, and we keep on just missing out on Keenan Allen. He's going to lead a lot of teams to the championship this year.
I really think he is. So if you got him, hold on to him, because he could really carry you far. Getting short on time, but I want to talk about Dak Prescott as we wrap things up here, because early in the season he had some turnovers, had that awful game against the 49ers. People panicked. Over the last month, he is the QB1, but week 10 really stood out. And yes, it was against the Giants. Still, nearly 38 fantasy points, spreading the ball around, getting CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks all involved. And you look at the schedule down the stretch for Dak Prescott. A lot of games either against good matchups like Washington and Carolina, or games that are potentially high scoring like the Eagles, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Lions in championship week. So where you might have thought of Dak Prescott as kind of a high-end QB2, he could be the guy that maybe leads you to a fantasy championship when it's all said and done. Pretty much that'll do it, but before we get out of here, I want to give a shout out to our own Jack Deem, who is leaving us for bigger and better things. It's been amazing. He's been running the show for the last month. I don't know how to feel, because lately we've had folks who use us as a stepping stone. So like on the one hand, I'm sad that people keep getting axed from our show, but on the other hand, they're going off to bigger and better things. So we're excited. Jack, we appreciate everything you've added to this show. A guy who went from being just a digital media specialist to actually producing and directing his own show here, which does not happen very often. So certainly glad to have known you, to have worked with you. Excited to see what's coming next for Jack, but we're certainly going to miss you around here.
One less Mac Miller fan in the building now.
You're losing
man.
Bills fans and Mac Miller fans. Like,
my heart is just getting ripped apart.
at some point, you should take this personally. That's all I know about it. But in the meantime, that'll do it for this edition of the Stardom Sid'em Show. We appreciate you hanging out with us. It's always for the Quan Jones, for Michael F. Florio. I am Marcus Grant. Thanks for checking us out. Enjoy week 11, everybody, and we'll talk to you again real soon.